Hello and welcome to another episode of Starside Chat. I am one of your hosts, Zach, and joining me as always is Aaron.
Hello.
And today we're doing our E3 2019 wrap show.
We love to talk about E3 year-round.
Yeah, I considered uploading our conference recaps as little miniature episodes, but I did not. So if you want to see those, go to our YouTube channel. There are recap shows for all the different press conferences, Nintendo, Microsoft, not Sony. I almost said Sony. Yeah, all the other ones there, they were fun to do. You get to see like the games we're talking about. So definitely go check out our YouTube channel if you haven't watched those yet. But now we're going to wrap everything up and we're doing the top 5 games and a few other things. It's going to be a fun time. So do you want to start with the top 5 games at E3?
Let's do it. So you and I deliberated. Each of us have a list of 5 games we found to be our top 5 favorite games from E3. We don't know each other's lists. I predict we will have at least 2 things in common, maybe more. But I'll go ahead and start with my top 5. My 5th most liked thing at E3 2019 is Deathloop.
Deathloop, really?
Deathloop. The reason it's so high on the list is because we didn't see any gameplay, and I have no idea how it will play. I just know that it's like from the makers of Dishonored, and I love Dishonored, and the way you move in it, it's like kind of like a spiritual sequel to Thief a little bit, where, you know, you're hiding in darkness and you're sneak attacking people, and, you know, Prey, I think, was also by these people, I want to say. I'm not actually sure. But Deathloop looks very, very interesting to me, and I am hungry for more details on it. Is
this that one where it's like a cinematic trailer of the 2 people like shooting and killing each other over and over again, and then they'll like wake up again and go back at it again?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I get some of these, the newer ones that they only showed like a brief like cinematic for, I get kind of mixed up in my head.
I'm very eager to see what this is.
Yeah, it seemed cool. I'm curious if it's going to be a co-op game or some sort of like 1v1 multiplayer type of a thing.
I don't know, man. I think it's strictly single player narrative, but I'm basing that off nothing.
Yeah, it's hard to say right now. Well, what if they show us another cinematic trailer, but instead of just being like 2 people in sort of a never-ending 1v1, there's like suddenly a bunch more people?
No. You're talking about a battle royale, aren't you?
Like a hero-based battle royale, maybe?
I mean, I'm into that. I love Apex Legends,
yeah.
But I'm looking for another like stealth-based. I mean, my dream is for someone to make a good version of Thief again, but that's not going to happen anytime soon. And Dishonored, I think, is the closest we're going to get for a while, and this is, I think, going to be in that same vein. I don't know. I'm very interested to see what it's going to be like.
Yeah, I will say it's one of the more interesting new IPs that got shown. There was a few of them, and this one was definitely one of the more interesting ones.
What about you? What's your number 5?
My number 5, and this may shock you, was Cyberpunk 2077.
Ooh, what a showing they had. Probably the most talked about thing from this E3.
Yeah, the Keanu reveal. And they did say there was another behind closed doors demo, and people were equally blown away by that as well.
I've read like text transcripts of what happens in that, and it seems great.
Yeah, I wish they would stop doing that. I may have to rant at some point about how like all the developers are kind of going to these behind closed doors demos instead of like showing games at the actual conference. I think part of it is because they're sick of those YouTube channels that do like the side by side. This is what you guys showed at E3 and this is what the game actually looks like. And they like don't get that it's aspirational content that they're showing just to give us a sense of what the game is going to be, not necessarily like a promise of what the final game actually is. But then again, from the other perspective, like you're trying to sell us on a game based on what you're showing. So technically it's a little bit like false advertising. So I understand both sides of the argument, but if it means that we're not going to get to see as many things at E3 because they're all going to be hidden behind closed doors so that people don't have footage to like attack the devs with later, then it feels like we're losing something. But yeah, Cyberpunk is very exciting, and the fact that that Keanu reveal was probably the coolest thing that happened at E3.
Just the tip of the iceberg too, because it's not just like oh, they had him for a day, he's going to be a cameo. I read that he has the most lines of anyone in Cyberpunk. He's with you, I think, throughout the whole film. I think he's not film, but game. He's like basically a ghost in the machine, I think.
Yeah.
Like that only you can see. And also he's a person from the lore. I don't really know the lore of Cyberpunk 2020, but I don't know. It's like, that's not just like a one-off cameo. He's like integral to the plot.
So you see him being revealed now and you're like, oh, I wonder if he's just like a one-off side character. But no, even though they waited so late to reveal that he's in the game, he's supposed to be there from start to finish. And they even said that he helped get some of the dialogue right and sort of help try to give some input for some things that are maybe not one of CD Projekt's red strengths. I don't know necessarily what their dialogue is like in The Witcher, but
that is very interesting to me. I love Keanu Reeves, so I'm sure he contributed nothing but good things.
Yeah, it's cool that he was able to help on that level and do a lot more than just play a character in it. But yeah, I'm very excited about Cyberpunk. But anyway, tell me what your number 4 is.
This was almost, I would call this pre-E3. This was kind of the first thing we looked at. But Baldur's Gate 3 was revealed at the Stadia press conference, which wasn't even in E3. It was like pre-E3. But I loved Baldur's Gate and Baldur's Gate 2. I played them a ton. I also played, oh man, what was the second thing called? There was a game that came after that I played a bunch as well, but I don't remember the name of it. But it was another like top-down isometric. Anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, for people that don't know, explain what Baldur's Gate is like to play.
It's like Dungeons and Dragons, basically. It was like kind of the first iteration of like, what if Dungeons and Dragons was an isometric, like top-down game where you could like freeze combat second to second and like have a party and whatnot. Maybe not the first iteration, but it's the one that I played and was very popular. And it's just like you can create a character. I don't know about this new one, but in Baldur's Gate, you could create a character, and then there was like this plot where I think your uncle died or something. I don't remember. But then you just sort of like wander around, and you can get into it's a little bit like Divinity Original Sin, which like those guys are making this. So I don't know. And I love Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2. So whatever this is, I'm sure it will. I would assume at this point that it will look similar to Divinity Original Sin, but who's to say? Maybe it'll be third person. Like, we don't know what's going to happen, but
that's true.
I love this universe. Like, Baldur's Gate is basically set in like Dungeons and Dragons or like on the Sword Coast or whatever. So I don't know. I'm very excited for whatever this. But again, it's high on my list because we didn't get any gameplay.
Yeah, there was rumors that this was going to happen, so people kind of already knew to expect it. But I don't think anybody was quite expecting it during the Stadia announcement or the little press conference that they did. And yeah, I think the thing I'm most excited about is I didn't play the Baldur's Gate games way back when, but I have played Divinity Original Sin 2 and I like that game a lot. So that's the thing that has me excited about, that it's the same developer.
What about you? What's your number 4?
Destiny 2 Shadowkeep.
Ooh, I almost put this on my list. It's maybe one of my honorable mentions, but yeah, we were talking about this earlier today, texting about it. Both of us are like back on. It's this cycle, man. Every year we're done with Destiny, and every year we're back on board with Destiny.
Yeah, there's always some sort of announcement that like reinvigorates my interest in the series and makes me want to keep playing. I don't know what it is. They've got those hooks in us.
Yeah,
and
man.
Like we'll play it. Like I play it for sure fairly obsessively for at least a few weeks after a new DLC comes out. And then I'll just like, I don't know, I'll get tired of it and put it down. And I just
you'll hit that cap.
Yeah, it is kind of the cap, really. And I'll just hit that cap and I'll have no desire to play for like 6 months to a year, basically. And even though they're announcing, oh, here's some more content, I'm just like, yeah, I'm not interested, whatever. I think I'm done with Destiny. But inevitably, there's always that other, like, the biggest DLC they have of the year. That's the one that always gets me to come back. And
this isn't just DLC. This is cross-save.
That's what I was gonna say. The reason why this is on my list is because they're doing cross-save. It's going to free to play on PC. Well, not just PC, but like everywhere. It's going free to play, and I can finally download this on Steam. It's making the transition from Battle.net to Steam, and you'll be able to download the game for free, and you can just buy updates from now on. So they're sort of simplifying the payment model a little bit, which I think is a wise decision.
I think so too.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to be able to download this on Steam, port my character from PS4 to Steam, and pick up where I left off. And so,
the way this is also like the first content we're getting that's been worked on post their split with Activision, and they talked a lot in the lead up to E3 about like the changing culture at Bungie now that they have everything like in their own hands, and everything is good. Like they're talking about like bringing back RPG elements and all the stuff we've been asking for, and just like I don't know, man, everything about there was like a I don't remember what, I think it was pre E3 they had a big thing about Shadowkeep. And you watched it before I did, and you were texting me like, this is everything we've ever wanted. Yeah. And I was like, oh, man. And then I watched it, and you were right. Like, they just had like a list of things they were talking about, and every single one of the beats was like, this is great, also, like, this is also great news, this is great, let's come to Steam, awesome. Like, I don't know, man. I'm super pumped for this.
And that's crazy because I think just a couple days earlier, I was just kind of like, I don't know. I think I'm done with Destiny, to be honest. And then I watched this thing. I was like, oh, it's everything I've ever wanted from Destiny. I think I'm back. They always do it somehow.
It's that same thing from Destiny 1 even, because both times they had those like Sparrow racing leagues. That was during a period where I was just like, whatever, I'm done with this. So I never got to experience Sparrow Racing League because it was always in those like content droughts.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's just like, it's literally from year one. It's been this cycle where like things are great in like September, and then stuff kind of dies off basically until next September.
Yeah. Like they have a few small content drops in there. Like I know they did, what was it? I forget the names of them, but there were two towards the end of last year, and people were like, you can play through this content in like 2 hours, and then you're back to being stuck and not having anything meaningful to do. And so I just kind of like was like, yeah, whatever, not interested. But this is a much more substantial update. Plus, they kind of held their ground a little bit where they were like, we're going to keep launching little bits of content here and there, and it has this cumulative effect that by the time you log back in during the big new DLC, things have taken a substantial change, and it's definitely worth jumping back into. So good for them going solo and correcting things, finally calling it an MMO, doing like all the things people wanted. I think they get rid of the microtransaction store as well.
They lessened it, I think. Like the Eververse is still there, but I'm actually not sure what they're changing. I know it's been good. Like the community is happy with whatever they've done.
Yeah, so I mean, they're just making a ton of improvements. So it's pretty exciting. I'm looking forward to jumping back into it. Right, we were talking before we started recording, and I want to play it on PC. I don't want to jump back into it on PS4. But I want to like start preparing my character to transfer him to PC. So I'm stuck in this weird phase of not knowing whether I should like go back and play it on PS4 or if I should just wait and download it on Steam and pick it up from there.
That is the one bummer, is that you do have cross save, but you have to buy new pieces of content specific to platforms. So like if you get Shadowkeep on PS4, you can play Shadowkeep on PS4, but you can only do like regular activities if you play on PC, even though it's the same save, and vice versa. So you'd have to basically buy it twice if you wanted to play it wherever you want to play it.
Yeah, and that's why I think when we did our recap of Bungie's little stream that they did for Shadowkeep, I was a little bit down on it just because of, like, everybody was super excited about cross-save, but I was a little bit down on it just because not having cross-platform play makes it so that, like, it's all well and good that you can now move your character from one platform to another, But unless your friends move with you, there's not really any point to doing it because now you can't play with your friends. So it's a little bit like, it's nice, but there's still reason you might feel stuck on one platform. But maybe they'll get there eventually. But let's move on to your number 3.
I am curious. This is one that I think I have in common with you, and I wonder if it's also your number 3. Might be your number 2 or 1. My number 3 is Watch Dogs Legion.
It is not my number 3.
I am very into this game. I have to say I'm bummed that it leaked that it was going to be you can play as any NPC, because what a reveal that would have been if they did that live. Like, that trailer was definitely created to, like, shock you when the main character died.
Yeah.
And so it had a little bit less bite after that leaked. But
it's
still,
true.
Watch Dogs 2, I think we've talked about this a ton. When we did the Ubisoft, I gushed about it. But, like, Watch Dogs 2 is a great game. Watch Dogs 1 is an okay game. I love hacking in general as like a story element or like a skill, and this looks great. I am jazzed to see what kind of crazy gadgets you can get. I am definitely going to play this. I think it is I think it's a home run in my book.
When is this coming out again? It's later this year,
I don't remember.
Right?
I think you're right. Yeah, I think it is like in October or November or something.
And I will say, even though the information leaked that you can play as any NPC and all that, like, it still was a very effective trailer that really...
I agree.
Like, I think I watched this conference before you did as well, and I texted you. I was like, your mind's going to be blown by this. Because
the fact that you can play as an old lady is crazy.
Such variety in gameplay opportunities with that. Now, I do think they said that the amount of people you can recruit is a little bit limited, and also I think it's also based on like a collection of randomly generated traits. So it's not as like free and open as maybe you thought initially, but it's still pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to see, because I mean, my go-to would probably just be to stick to one character, but if they can incentivize me to play as different characters, there's permadeath, exactly. So I don't want to get too attached, but if they can incentivize me to mix it up and play as different characters for different missions, I think that would be very fun.
Yeah, I kind of like the idea of trying to recruit like a well-balanced roster so that you have somebody ready to go depending on what type of task you have at hand to take care of. So that's pretty cool to me.
And I think we speculated about this during our Ubisoft recap, but I'm sure there's going to be a mission where you use like multiple people in your crew, just like those specific GTA 5 missions where you're like zooming around the action and like you're in a helicopter and now you're in a car and like now you're on the side of a building and like everything is happening. You're just like going back and forth. I'm sure that'll make for some really cool cinematic moments.
Yeah, well, and just the fact that like you can play as one character who's like really good at using drones or whatever, and one character who's like an old lady and kind of does like stealth kills or whatever, and then you have another character that like fights like John Wick or something like that. Like, I don't know, that seemed really cool to me, so I'm into it.
What is your number 3 if it's not Watch Dogs Legion?
It is another 3, Luigi's Mansion 3.
Ooh, just announced it's coming out on Halloween.
Halloween, the perfect day for that. Actually, I was like, this has to be an October release, like for sure. One, because of Halloween, but also just looking at the window of time when they have their other big releases for the fall. It was pretty obvious it was going to have to be October, but it was very on the nose Halloween release. I don't know. It just something about the trailer really got to me. It was like something about the way that the narrator of the trailer and just the visual elements and the music and everything, it really made me think of like the Hollywood Tower of Terror from Disney World. And like a bunch of cool stuff like that. Even like Junkenstein's Revenge from Overwatch. And I play that like every Halloween. So I don't know. I think this could be a lot of fun. And I like the fact that it has like an online mode that's sort of we were talking about it during our recap, where there's like every floor you go up on is like a different challenge to complete. I think that could be fun to play even once you finish the main story. So it's cool that there's going to be...
it's almost like a roguelite element.
Yeah, so it's cool that there's going to be a lot of content to it. I like that it switched from like a mansion setting to like a haunted hotel. And so it seems like there's probably room to have a lot more fun with that. So...
And there's Guiji.
And Guiji, of course. Can't forget Guiji.
Yeah, I'm excited for this as well. I have never played a Luigi's Mansion game except for like in an arcade setting. But this is one I think I'm definitely going to pick up just because I like Luigi as a character. And it genuinely looks super fun. Like there seems like there's some cool puzzles and stuff.
Yeah, and I gave a lot of precedence on this list towards games that I didn't really expect to care about. And then when I saw what they had to show, I was like really impressed by them, and it really made me want to play them. And Luigi's Mansion is definitely one of those where I like was not anticipating at all. Like I knew that they were making one, but I kind of didn't expect to care about it. And then after what they showed, I was like, I'm definitely getting this game because it looks a lot of fun. Yeah. So yeah, I was so pleasantly surprised by it that I think if it can do that much to win me over, it deserves to be somewhere on this list. But tell me your number 2.
My number 2, again, is hitting that nostalgia, like from Baldur's Gate 3. But a game I played a ton in high school was Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines. And they released a ton of gameplay footage for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2. And... you know, it looks awesome. Like, it looks like everything I wanted from Bloodlines 1. Like, Bloodlines 1 was... it was an okay game. It was very buggy. Like specifically there was like a part where I remember, man, what was the context? You had to go to like this crazy ghost mansion, and there were some ghosts you had to deal with, and that part did not work for me. Like I had to like brute force get through it because it kept crashing on my old computer. But it was great, man. I just like all the interactions you can do. This is another game where you can hack, but it's just like incidental. Like you can just find like old PCs that like have like CRTs and just like look at people's emails, and that will sometimes help you. Like you're not controlling like gun turrets or anything. These are just like ways to collect information. Like you're not unlocking doors by hacking, but it was cool to do. I like the setting a whole lot. I like that you can pick your vampire clan, just like I don't know. There's a lot of ways to play. I think you can still be like the insane clan that all of their dialogue is crazy. This is one I'm definitely going to pick up, even if it's probably going to maybe get bad reviews if it's like super buggy like the last one was. But I'm still going to pick it up because I just like, I love the lore of Vampire the Masquerade.
Yeah, it's a game I don't know a lot about. I never played the previous one, so...
The previous one is more playable now. If you get it on, like, it's always on sale on Steam for like $2 during summer sales, and there's an unofficial fan patch that you can get from like the Steam community page, and that fixes like a ton of stuff apparently. I thought about I own it on Steam now, and I thought about replaying it with the patch just to like see some of the content I never got to see because I had to literally look away from crazy particle effects so my game didn't crash. I don't know. Maybe I'll do like a retrospective and play through Bloodlines 1 again and see if it holds up. It probably does not, but because like the shooting and stuff was awful. But I don't know. This is something I'm super excited for. I don't remember the release date, but I feel like it's soon. Or maybe they didn't give one, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah, I don't remember off the top of my head.
But it seemed put together. Like, the gameplay footage they showed was like a full mission, and like you walk around one of the hubs, and everything about it seems great to me.
Well, we should do a video on it when it comes out and you eventually pick it up.
I will. Well, yeah, so what is your number 2?
Well, we already talked about it as Watch Dogs Legion, and it's a good thing that it's on both of our lists to give us a chance to correct our release expectation. I looked it up, it's March 6th, 2020.
Oh no!
Not fall this year, so yeah, correction. But yeah, it's just something about that trailer that they showed, like that extended gameplay, just really blew me away. The fact that you can recruit just about anybody from the population and that they all have their own lives, they're fully voiced, they're like fleshed out characters that have like background missions and like background stories for you to like play and learn about. That just really blew my mind when I was watching it. I put in our notes for the Ubisoft press conference in all caps, how is this possible? Because, I was just constantly sort of blown away by what that game was doing. So
it's that Ubisoft game design where you enter a situation and you need to complete an objective with a bunch of guards surrounding it. Like that Far Cry formula, sort of, where there's like encampments that you have to get in and accomplish something. But with this, because it's set in modern times, they can be just like crazy setups. And also, you have so many more tools at your disposal. Like with Far Cry, it was basically just like, hey, kill everybody. But with this, it's like, hey, like hack a bunch of cameras and figure out where the server room is, or just like send your drone up into the air and like see if you can get in through a window, like never even set foot on the premises, and you've like accomplished your goal by just like doing it remotely, which is super fun.
Yeah, well, and this kind of similar to what I was saying about Luigi's Mansion 3 and even Destiny 2, honestly. The reason why Watch Dogs made my list and so high up on my list was because it was initially a game that I was aware of, but wasn't really anticipating, kind of didn't think I would care. And I was so blown away by what they showed that it easily jumped to like my top list of things I'm most anticipating as far as like games I'm going to get to play within the next year, you know? So yeah, I gave it a lot of credit for that, for the fact that it was able to show me a game that I didn't think I'd care about and make me that excited about it. So what is your number one?
I bet we both have the same number one.
I don't know.
Really?
Yeah.
My number one is the sequel to Breath of the Wild.
Oh, yeah, I did not put that on my list.
Really? This was the only good One More Thing of the show. And you know I love One More Things.
Yeah.
And the way they did it, I already talked about this, but the way they did it, where they like slowly revealed that it was Breath of the Wild, and then at the end of the trailer, like no music, like volume to 0, just white text on the screen. The sequel to Breath of the Wild is in development. Just like it gave me chills. Like Breath of the Wild is one of the greatest games, I guess.
Yeah,
like
it
probably
is.
Ever. And my mind is ablaze thinking at all the things they can do. Since they already have the world, we already know it's the same Hyrule. Like the thing we discussed is like they had so many ideas for DLCs, they were just like, let's make another game. So the palette is set. They have the world, but you know, years have passed, I assume, since the events of the last one. So like, who's to say how the world has evolved? But just like to start with that baseline, you have the engine, you have the map, use all of your development time for improving things. Like, I don't know, man, this is going to be amazing.
Yeah, it is for sure. And I think we were speculating, you can go watch our Nintendo recap. We kind of got into speculating what the game was going to be like. And I don't think we mentioned was that it almost looks like in the trailer, when it cuts to that wide shot where you see like all of Hyrule and you can see the castle there in the middle, there's like this sort of explosion of like dust and smoke all around it. And like, is that the castle like raising up into the air like a rocket?
That's what I took it to be. Yeah.
Is it sinking into the ground? Like, it could be anything and we don't know.
Well, I mean, the first thing that happens in Breath of the Wild basically is all of the towers raise.
Yeah.
So I assume it's basically the same technology where just like now the entire castle is raising up, you know?
Yeah. And what an interesting way to like change the landscape that we already know so well by now in an interesting way, and sort of give you, even though you're probably going to revisit the castle at some point during that game, like change it in a way that is interesting, so it doesn't just feel like you're playing the same game again.
You know, something else we didn't talk about, Breath of the Wild made headlines and was famous for being able to play the way you want, where like right when you get out of the Great Plateau, you can make a beeline for the end of the game.
Yeah.
Do you think that's going to be the case here?
Maybe. Like, I mean, I can see that. Do you think
it's going to be, will it be the same formula where you're locked off maybe again on the Great Plateau and you have to complete a series of like get all your powers, or like this is the game basically, and then you're let loose? Or do you think you're just let loose from the get-go? Like, is this a Skyrim situation where you have to do an intro story bit, or Like, what is the outlook of like the first hour of this game, you know?
It's hard to say because we talked about it a little bit, but like, are you going to have to redo the shrines? Are they going to be completely different? Especially if this is like the same Hyrule that we just completed in Breath of the Wild. Like, how are they going to change it in a meaningful way where it's like a noticeable difference? So it doesn't just feel like, well, they padded this game out by letting you redo all the stuff you did in Breath of the Wild, but now the castle's like up in the air and there's a different bad guy.
I would still be on board for that.
I mean, I do think it's going to come down to whether it's co-op and you can play as either Zelda or Link. That's one option. The other option is, well, this time when that Ganon wakes up, maybe he snatches Link and then you play as Zelda. And then
that would be crazy. And I would love that. And
in that way, you change the entire way the game is played because Zelda and Link don't have the same abilities. Like Zelda has more like...
No Master Sword.
Yeah, no Master Sword. Zelda has more like magical abilities, I would say.
Ooh. Oh man, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, like what about that? What if it's that different of an experience where you almost don't have to even pick up weapons, but you have essentially all the... like. In Breath of the Wild, there are all these different weapons, like one's the fire sword, one's the electric sword, and you need to utilize them in key areas of the game, like maybe there's a shrine where part of the challenge is to get electricity from point A to point B. Well, now you don't even need to use weapons, so that issue people complained about where swords and shields kept breaking too easily, now you don't even have to worry about that at all because Zelda just has these cool abilities that maybe she's learning or she's picking up somehow, you know?
This makes so much sense. Like this slots into that rumor. I guess it's not a rumor because they've already said, but that information where they said they had too many ideas for DLC because I could see someone like in a boardroom being like, what if there's a DLC where you play as Zelda and like this is different, this is different, this is different. And everyone else was just like, this opens way too many doors. This could be its own game. Hey, let's just make this another game.
Yeah, that I could definitely see that being the case.
I need you to justify whatever your number one is because it's crazy to me that it's not Zelda 2.
Well, so my number one is a game that is coming out this year, and I feel like I learned more information about it at E3 that has me excited to play it. And I didn't put as much on the sequel to Breath of the Wild because that's a long ways out. Like
that's fair.
Probably not even next year, or if it is next year, like late next year.
I predict next November. Because I bet we'll see a ton of gameplay at E3 next year. And then, because they're going to have to compete with PS5 and whatever the Xbox is called.
Yeah.
So they're going to be like, hey, forget about those. This Christmas, instead of buying a PS5, buy this crazy game.
Buy Breath of the Wild 2 bundle and get a Switch Pro.
Oh, man. What about that? That sounds great to me.
No. So my number one is The Outer Wilds. Is it?
Wait,
Outer
which one is that?
Worlds? I don't even know the name of my number one game.
I know. Which one is the one you're talking about? Is it the time loop one, or is it the one from the makers of New Vegas?
Makers of New Vegas. That's Outer Worlds. That's what I meant.
That looks great to me. I get that. That seems like it's going to be a great game.
And the reason for that is, like, I'm a big fan of Bethesda and BioWare games, of past ones, and this looks like the type of game that they used to make, but they don't make anymore. You know what I mean? Where like BioWare's making Anthem and they're going for this like cooperative online shooter, and they've sort of went from being like these really good character driven, like story driven games where combat wasn't so good, and they've just sort of transitioned to doing the opposite, where they're trying to make a really satisfying combat game that you can play online with friends, and the story's now not so good. And the same kind of thing for Bethesda, where they used to make, you know, the Elder Scrolls games and they used to make the Fallout games, and they were like, combat was sort of iffy in those games, but the story and characters and the world was very good, very interesting. But now they're doing Fallout 76 where there basically is no story and it's all about like exploring a world in co-op and getting into combat. So this game looks like the type of game that they used to make that they just don't make anymore. And that's why it's my number one game, because I want to go back to that style of a game where there is dialogue and choices to be made, and there's a lot of characters to interact with, and combat is not necessarily at the forefront, but it still has its own interesting twist to it.
Yeah, I like this. This seems like a game with like a ton of interwoven systems where like you can be good at speech, or like, again, this is probably a game where you can like put points into hacking or put points into the gunplay if you want to, and like put that in the. But it also seems to have basically VATs as well.
Yeah, they're doing a lot of things that is very similar to Fallout, because it is the developers behind, I want to say, the original Fallout games and New Vegas. Aren't they all like?
I think it's a couple of different people that all combine for this pedigree.
So that's very exciting to me as well, that like they're going back to what made those games great, and they're just sort of adapting it to an entirely new universe. And pretty much everything I heard about it is very, very exciting to me. They didn't show much during the Microsoft conference. It was mainly a cinematic trailer, but
they started off with it though.
Yeah, they led off with it. They're very confident in it. And it's definitely the kind of thing that I think the developers are owned by Microsoft.
They are, yeah.
So I'm thinking if this game does well, maybe we get an Outer Worlds 2, and it's even bigger, because they're going to have the budget to do it because they're owned by Microsoft now.
What is the release date?
It is October 25th.
Ooh, that's coming up.
Yeah, so this fall, it is kind of like the prime time game, I guess, that's hitting in October. I guess aside from Luigi's Mansion, but like, I don't know. I'm super into this game. I really want to play it. So,
this is something I probably will. Do you think you'll get it on PC?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to get it on. I already like flagged the Steam page so that I can just go there and grab it when it comes out. So, anyway, do you want to do some honorable mentions before we get to our game of show?
Yeah. I guess my first honorable mention, we didn't talk about it, but I mean, I think it's just because you don't go around every day saying the sky is blue, because it is, but Doom Eternal looks like something that's going to be really good. Like 100% I'm going to play that.
Yeah.
But, it's not like a super bold statement to say that's probably going to be an amazing game.
Yeah, same. I also have that as an honorable mention. I also had Breath of the Wild 2, and then Zelda Link's Awakening.
Oh, yeah. That's coming out soon, too, isn't it?
I want to say that's either September September 20th.
That's great.
And then I also had Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we got a ton more info on that at E3.
Yeah, I liked what I saw from that. Like the wild area that they showed seemed pretty cool to me. So I'm into that game. And then Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which I specifically want to highlight because I think they did themselves a bit of a disservice in showing what they showed, the way they showed it. Like, they didn't show the most interesting stuff that they could have shown. Basically, I heard that there was a behind closed doors demo that was shown, and there are like multiple different planets that you can fly to, and it's a little bit like Mass Effect in that you have a ship that's sort of a hub area where you can walk around and talk to people, and you can go to any of the planets in any order. And like, there was a whole bunch more like interesting details about the game that got shown behind closed doors and not mentioned during the like gameplay. And the gameplay was
I did not get any of that.
Yeah, the gameplay was fairly dry. Like, that was not the most interesting thing they could have shown. I was into it. I kind of liked what I saw, even though I thought it was fairly dry compared to what they could have shown. But yeah, I think that game's going to be pretty cool. Even though I'm kind of not into Star Wars anymore, I am into that game.
I'll say also Animal Crossing was something I'm interested in.
And Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Oh my god, we forgot about that. Yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake.
I almost thought that was going to be on your list.
Well, I thought about it, because I was like looking through like important things that happened at E3, and I saw Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I was like, oh yeah, this is definitely going on the list. But then I realized like this is cool, but we also don't know any kind of like what the length is, and like it's crazy. The stuff they've shown is all like basically within the first hour of gameplay, pretty much. Like they showed a ton of that big scorpion boss from the first reactor you shut down. They showed, like Cloud meeting Aerith or Eris, however you want to say it.
Eris Morn.
But like, I don't know, man. Like they have said that Wall Market is going to be in the game. Like the crazy Cloud cross-dressing thing is going to be in the game. We haven't seen any of that. I guess we've seen stuff we saw motorcycle stuff, but it seems like it's not in the right place. And like we've seen some Shinra Tower stuff, but also like Red 13 is, I mean, if this is all of Midgar, Red 13 is going to be in this game towards the end. So like, what's that going to be like? We haven't seen anything about that. Like there's too many question marks, but I'm very excited. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I don't want more. Maybe I want it to be a surprise, but I'm playing through Final Fantasy VII right now again. And I'm like jonesing for that nostalgia. And, I don't know. I guess I want to know more, but I don't want to know more. It's kind of a juxtaposition.
Yeah. To be fair, I think a lot of people have questions about like ongoing support and how they're going to continue I guess, do they refer to them as episodes or what? I don't know how they break it up.
They did. So they gave a release date, right? That was the big thing. I don't remember what it is.
It's next year sometime.
But like, I don't know, man. Yeah, how is it going to be? Like, if this is just Midgar, I'm playing through this game. There's a ton of stuff that happens. Like, there's 3 discs worth of stuff that happen. Like, you don't even leave the first disc until way after Midgar. And they've said they're going to flesh out Midgar. I don't know. I just what is the first hour of this gameplay? Like, it's not going to mirror exactly. I'm very excited for this game. Don't get me wrong. It sounds like I'm bashing it. I'm super excited. I'm definitely going to get it, but, I don't know. I think the reason it didn't make my list was because, like, the reason Deathloop...
Too many things unclear.
3, exactly. The reason Deathloop I'm super excited about was so high on the list was because I just don't know any... There's a lot of unknowns.
Yeah, that's fair, I think. Anyway, do you have a game of show?
I gotta say it's Cyberpunk 2077, just because, like, sites that aren't gaming news sites were blogging about that. Like, the fact that Keanu Reeves busted out on stage... We talked about this when we went over it, but like that's a moment that I like go around on YouTube and try to find reaction videos of, because like even though it wasn't a One More Thing, it had the energy of a One More Thing, and like definitely Cyberpunk 2077. Even though they had that behind closed doors, I feel like that's the game everyone was walking out of E3 talking about. That's
going to be one of those like classic E3 moments that people remember for like the rest of time, basically, because it was so cool. But the only reason I put it at number 5 when Cyberpunk was my number 1 on my most anticipated things being at E3 was because I was disappointed that it was another behind closed doors demo, and the only thing they showed at Microsoft was just another cinematic trailer. I mean, it was super cool that they revealed the release date and Keanu Reeves, and that was all super cool. But like to not get any gameplay in there afterwards, I was like sitting there. I was like, "This is awesome! This is awesome! Now show the gameplay!" And then it moved on to something else. So that was the only reason it was number 5 and not higher up on the list. But yeah, I'm also super looking forward to that game. I don't think they're going to make their estimated release date. I think it's going to get pushed back, but I'll remain hopeful that maybe they can get there. So my game of show was Watch Dogs Legion.
Ooh, tell me why.
So I had it as my number 2 on my top 5 games, but I think a lot of it was, one, it was that element that I kept talking about where I wasn't anticipating this game, and I was so blown away by what they showed that I'm now suddenly super interested in it. And that was not like, I already knew I wanted to play The Outer Worlds. I didn't know I wanted to play Watch Dogs Legion, even after seeing the leak information. The fact that they were then able to like pull me in that way was very big. But also, they just showed so much of it. You know what I mean? Like most every other game on this list, other than maybe like Final Fantasy VII Remake, it was either cinematic trailers or like very short snippets of gameplay. A lot of stuff hidden behind closed doors. So the fact that they were like, this is our game. Look at all this gameplay. Let me blow you away with it. I gave them a lot of credit for that. So
yeah.
Our games of the show, I guess, are Watch Dogs Legion and Cyberpunk 2077. Now, I want to rank the shows so that we can say, well, we don't necessarily have to rank them, I guess. But I just want to know who won E3.
I think it's a toss-up between Microsoft and Nintendo, because I think Microsoft had a pretty good press conference. I mean, they had the Keanu Reeves reveal, which that in and of itself is great. But Nintendo also, they had my formula, basically, of like, what's going on in the beginning? What is this? And granted, it was something I didn't care about. It was like a Dragon Quest character for Smash. But they had that. They had the one more thing, and they had a ton of gameplay for different games. Yeah. So, like, I don't know. Maybe Nintendo wins, but I was going to say Keanu Reeves is so hard to deal with.
Really, like, to me, it's Nintendo by a country mile. Like, nothing is even close.
Like Keanu Reeves, though.
I mean, Keanu Reeves, though, it was a cool moment, but like, what other thing about that show was worth like stacking up against what Nintendo?
You're right. I mean, like, it is Nintendo. You're right.
Like, The Outer Worlds was the first thing as an opener, which is it's a game I'm looking forward to. It's my number one.
It doesn't meet my formula
thing, but yeah, it doesn't meet the formula because we already knew about it. And there was no gameplay. Like, the thing that I think Microsoft disappointed because they didn't have Sony to sort of take the sort of shoulder some of the load of all these different developers wanting to announce or show off their game. And so Microsoft was like, sure, the more the merrier. And they just had so many cinematic trailers. And they spent...
Also, how insane is it that Halo had a cinematic trailer a year later with no gameplay?
Yeah, still no gameplay for so many things. And like even Cyberpunk, when we've already seen like a 40-50 minute demo from last year, they still didn't have any gameplay to show.
It's Nintendo, you're right. Nintendo definitely won this E3. Just like Breath of the Wild, that Banjo-Kazooie thing, which we didn't talk about, which was a great reveal.
Yeah.
Astral Train looks awesome.
Animal Crossing.
Yes, they've been waiting for Animal Crossing since the Switch came out. They had a ton of stuff about the new Pokemon game, which people are super hot on.
Link's Awakening, Luigi's Mansion 3.
Yeah. It was a great press conference, I have to say.
It was.
And one of the shortest, which is crazy.
And the thing is, Nintendo has the right formula that I wish everyone, like Sony, Microsoft, all of them would adopt. And it is, like, we don't have to do this big stage show. Here's, like, we're going to show some gameplay of stuff. We're going to do, like, a direct. And then, like, after that, we're going to do, like, 3 or 4 days in a row of, like, 4 to 6 hour live streams where we, like, literally go around and, like, they've built this, like, Walt Disney World style, like, room that has all these cool things to see that people can walk through. And, like, the Luigi's Mansion 3 thing that they showed, it was literally, like, they had built, like, the lobby area of, like, a hotel that you could walk into, and like they had characters there and everything.
That's very cool.
And basically, it's an opportunity for them to like literally show off the games, because if they didn't have time to really get into, like, you could do what Microsoft did and have like 60 cinematic trailers or whatever it was during the like press conference part of it. But then you have to follow that up, and instead of like behind closed doors demos, give us those like 4 hour long live streams like day after day, where you're going around and literally you have like the devs and like a presenter, and he's asking questions about the game and they're literally showing you gameplay of it. Like, that's the best formula for what E3 should be going forward, I think.
I have to say, though, I love the spectacle of a stage show.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm fine if Microsoft wants to do like a spectacle stage show where they have like the Keanu reveal and everything. But you have to, like, I want to see some gameplay too. And if they don't have they don't have time to do that during their like super packed stage show, do follow that up, you know?
I agree. Yeah, definitely more gameplay is better. And I'm sure next E3, I'm sure like this was just laying in wait for the next generation. And I'm sure next E3 is going to be the one where they're like, here is gameplay. This is like, because that's the appeal of a new console. Like, this is running in engine right now on this console's hardware. So I'm sure that's what we'll see at E3 next year.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You could tell this E3, especially from Microsoft's perspective, was really just prelude to next year when they can actually show their console. They can show games running on it. They can talk about the next generation of games and like the launch lineup that they have. It felt like a lot of developers were sort of holding back a little bit. There was a lot of here's a remake, here's a DLC for a game that already exists that you already know about. Here's just another cinematic trailer for a game that you already know about. And if they did announce a new game, it was a cinematic trailer that really told you nothing about the game.
Yeah.
And they didn't even give a release date because I think they're, again, holding that back. And I think part of that is just like we're in an awkward phase where like maybe Deathloop, like that probably is a next-gen game. But can they show you gameplay of it yet? Because the consoles haven't really actually been announced yet. So they're sort of stuck in this weird holding situation. So I don't know. I feel like next year's E3, Sony had better come back and it had better knock our socks off, which I'm sure it will.
I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they're working on like Horizon Zero Dawn 2. I bet will be a launch title.
Oh, yeah, probably.
I got to get that. I'm sure it's like $20 right now, and I really have to play that.
It's super good. You should definitely get it.
Well, is this the final E3 video for a while, or do we have more stuff to talk about E3?
We got one more thing to do here in this podcast.
What?
Worst of E3. What do you got?
I like Final Fantasy VII, but I think I got to give it to Square. That was the hardest press conference to watch.
It was bad.
EA at least was only like, I only cared about Apex Legends, so I just watched.
Well,
I mean, I guess there was the Star Wars.
Yeah,
the Star Wars thing was fine, but
they need to change their formula. I think.
Yeah, that was. I mean, whatever. EA is bad, but that Square one was just like, it felt like it was 2 hours, and it was just constantly like, there's this and there's this, and I haven't even heard of this, and like, oh, here's another one of these.
Yeah.
And also, here's this Avengers game that looks awful.
That was my worst of E3 thing. That was the only thing I actually put down. Well, I put down mobile games as well, like Commander Keen and Gears Pop. Like,
I forgot about that.
Stop showing mobile games at E3. Nobody cares. Also, Battletoads looked dumb.
I don't have a lot of nostalgic for Battletoads.
Sorry if you like Battletoads, but I thought the game looked bad. So yeah, and Marvel's Avengers, you're right that Ubisoft, like, it's definitely, or Square. Sorry.
Square.
Yeah, Square. It's down to Square or EA as far as who had the worst conference.
I feel like it's Square gets it because it was longer. EA, I think I only watched EA for like maybe 20 minutes. And it was just...
So that was the thing. Like with EA, you knew, okay, they're starting with Star Wars. We definitely want to see that. Here's some stuff about Apex. I'll watch that. The rest of it I know is going to be sports, so I'm out. I don't care now.
Exactly.
But with Square, you're like, I got to find out what this Avengers thing is. And then you get to it, and it's super disappointing.
It's almost the last thing they do, so you have to wade through an hour and a half of nonsense. And then their coverage of that even was just like, here are all the voice actors sitting like backstage. Like, who cares?
Yeah, it was still all cinematic stuff and talking to the voice actors, and it wasn't, I don't know. I feel like they spent a long time on it and told us essentially nothing we didn't already know from like leaks and rumors.
I'm glad we're in agreement that, like, what even was that?
I have no idea. I think at first I was like not sure what to think, but then when we talked it out during our Square recap, I think I am like almost mad about how dumb that reveal was. But anyway, yeah, I don't know that we have any more E3 videos to do.
Maybe we'll do a video about speculating about what next year's E3 will be like.
Maybe we should speculate a Game Awards, some sort of thing like that.
I'm into that. They usually have some good reveals. I predict that the final Smash character will be revealed there.
Well, but the cool thing about the Game Awards is not only can we speculate on what's going to get announced, but we can speculate on who's going to win awards.
True. Do you have a front runner for this year's Game of the Year, do you think?
Not yet. Not personally. I do know that the Outer Wilds, not the Outer Worlds, I actually mean Outer Wilds this time, is sort of getting like an early dark horse candidate for Game of the Year. A lot of people are speaking very highly of that game. I was watching Game Informer, and I think this is shocking, but whoever was either reviewing Fire Emblem Three Houses or was like covering it for something, actually Ben Hansen put it to her straight. It was like, do you think anybody's going to be talking about this like at the end of the year for consideration of like a top 5 list or like Game of the Year? And she was like, honestly, maybe I would. So maybe, who knows? It just depends on if you like that style of game, I guess.
Switch exclusive though, right?
It is, yeah. It's always been a Nintendo exclusive series, but I don't know. What else have I played this year? I think for me, I would highlight some indies that are definitely not going to get any sort of coverage at the end of the year. I think maybe they'll get like some honorable mentions or something, but
Apex was this year, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, last year?
No, Apex was this year. For sure, that'll get some mention at the end
That'll
of the
get some noms.
For sure. But I would say Katana Zero. We did a video on that.
Yeah.
I loved that game, and I highly recommend playing that game. I think that's like a dark horse candidate for me, being on the top 5 list, or maybe a dark horse for Game of the Year even. I don't know if I'm that high on it, but I loved that game. I played it through probably 3 or 4 times.
Oh, wow.
Well, part of that was, one, I played it through because it was the first time I played it through. And then after that, we did a video on it. So I had to record gameplay. And then there was like, you can unlock a special room at the end where you can unlock different katanas that have like special effects. So I wanted to go back through the game to figure out how to unlock them all. And then I wanted to go back through to try them all out. So I ended up playing it a bunch of times. But it's super good. I think Sekiro Shadows Die Twice will get some noms.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
I also played Shakedown Hawaii, which nobody's going to mention, but that was a really fun game. You played Baba Is You. You think that will get?
Oh, yeah, I would like that as a dark horse. I mean, I think the difficulty ramps up a little high towards the end.
Yeah.
And some of the ways you have to solve puzzles are kind of, I think, unfair.
Oh, gotcha.
But yeah, that was a great little game. I don't know that it's like Game of the Year material, but I think it could definitely get like
best indie game of the year or something like that.
Yeah, or like some sort of design, like best puzzle game or something like that.
I bet you people talk about Tetris 99 as well.
Oh yeah,
as like a great sort of surprise battle royale situation.
Who knows? Maybe Luigi's Mansion 3 will be.
I would like that. I think that maybe could get there. Obviously, the Outer Worlds, I think, will probably be in the conversation. What else is even coming out later this year?
We should do a vid on
release dates.
What to expect. Yeah,
I did. I made a calendar.
Well, look forward to that coming up in this YouTube channel / podcast feed.
I'll try to see if I can figure out a way to share the calendar. So if you guys want to, you can add it to your Google Calendar and then you'll see release dates. But otherwise, yeah, we'll just do a video and talk release dates. So anyway, you have anything else?
No, I think that wraps up another season of E3 coverage, unless you want to do E365 and keep talking about it.
I mean, I'm sure we'll be talking about a lot of these games over the course of the year, so if you want to really think about it that way, the coverage will not stop.
Yes, keep your eyes locked to this feed.
But yeah, it's been too long since we recorded a podcast, and we've been a little bit running behind on doing the E3 wrap show, but highly recommend going to check out our recap videos if you haven't. Otherwise, follow us on Twitter at Starside Cafe and send us an email to tell us what your top 5 things at E3 were at starsidecafe@gmail.com. And we'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.